You know, I have to wonder about people who complain to the Official Languages Commissioner. 4 people have called Graham Fraser's office raising a stink about Foreign Affairs Minister John Baird's business cards. 4 people. Yep, he's got 2 sets of business cards. One English only, one bilingual. Commissar Fraser, the Language Commission, has ordered the minister to drop the English-only cards. Burn them, shred them, whatever, get rid of them. Apparently they don't, quote, foster the promotion of linguistic duality in Canada and abroad. Because that, of course, is the most important thing for John Baird to promote, right? Foreign Affairs Minister John Baird. Toronto Sun columnist Simon Kent has much more on this. Simon, I try to bend over backwards to understand some of this stuff. Sometimes I just don't. So help me out, would you? What am I missing here?
Well, it looks like it's a solution in search of a problem, isn't it? 4 people. Is that all? 4 people. And now you have this commissar of righteousness who's going after the minister. It's quite bizarre, and it's quite emblematic of sometimes people have way too much time on their hands and feel predisposed to telling other people how to live their life, how to do their job, and how to carry out their civic function. I would have thought Mr. Baird has every right to carry whichever business cards he so chooses. Whose right is it of any commissar? It's almost Kafkaesque, isn't it? Put your business cards on the table, put your hands above your head and back away slowly. We want to go through your cards. We want to see what's on them. And if we don't like them, we're going to send you to the naughty corner. It's quite absurd. And as I said, it's a problem in search of a solution. And we'd all be better served if some of these people went out and found a more meaningful way to make an existence.
So according to the commissar, it just doesn't foster what Canada is all about. What do you make of that?
Well, what Canada is all about is going to vary if you ask 20 different people. They're going to have 20 different opinions. You can't try and build a government policy around everyone having different opinions about what Canada is about. I mean, I'm a recent arrival in this country, but I see a really generous Canada. It's a country that's admired the world over, and Canada stands for a whole lot of things. I don't know if written into the original formation of this country, and when you had Confederation, if there was a line in there about business cards and what language should be on the business cards of certain ministers to make this a better or a worse place. What, is this the Ministry of Hurt Feelings? 4 people saw a business card from the minister and felt so aggrieved, so absolutely astonished by what they saw there, they had to go and complain. It's quite bizarre, and it's really demeaning that sometimes these debates happen in a country like Canada, which is so many people in the world are breaking their back to get into, to live in, and then they're confronted by this sort of, this almost high school debating society sort of stuff.
If someone were to complain that John Baird, when he's having conversations with people, doesn't break into French translation every 30 seconds or 60 seconds, the way, say, Stephen Harper does at a news conference, I mean, is the commissar, is the language commissioner going to get involved in that and say that John Baird doesn't speak enough French when he's speaking to people?
And you make a very good point. When you take a point that's extreme like that, you're really highlighting the absurdity of the argument and the unsustainability of the argument. Let the minister get on with doing his job, which I happen to think he does very, very well. Let him get on with that. Let him do it properly. Let him have the business cards he sees fit to carrying out his job and discharging his duties. I guess eventually if people don't like that, that's why they get rid of governments and they get rid of parties. But in the interim, let him get on with that and let him put whatever business cards he likes in his pocket. He might want to put Bahasa Indonesian in there as well if he feels so disposed. Well, let him get on with that because that's his choice. That's why he's a minister and that's why he's put there. And for these other aggrieved parties, maybe they should go and find, as I said before, something more meaningful in which to spend their time.
So let's go from the language police, the Canadian language police, which would be Graham Fraser, the language commissioner, to transportation police in Montreal. We thought we were only having to deal with the pasta police, the language police, what have you. But now you've got these people involved in transportation doing inspections on the buses to see whether or not people have legitimate tickets, whether they paid the legitimate fare. We've got a situation where a mother bringing her child home from the hospital didn't have exact change. She was supposed to give them $3. She gave a $5 bill. And the long and short of it is they fined her $212. I mean, what kind of authoritarianism, what kind of nonsense is that?
Well, let's talk about punishment fits the crime. This woman quite clearly offered legal tender. And so it would be a really interesting test case at law for someone to take this case and say, well, hold on, why are you discriminating against this person? What she offered for her bus fare was legal tender. Surely the operator of that bus, being in Canada, should be forced to take the legal tender offered and perhaps give her change further down the track in one or two stops rather than punish her. And you look into this background of this story, and this woman got on the bus, took her place, and then 2 or 3 stops later, the transport police came in, bustled in through the front and through the back, and took her off and proceeded to fine her, to write this ticket. And I just don't think that's punishment fits the crime, and I really don't think it shows a system that's really sympathetic to the way we live our modern life. And maybe she didn't get on with the right money, but if she's offering legal tender, surely it's incumbent on the operator and the person providing the service to accept the legal tender and further down the track give the change as it's necessary. But why are we having transport police with these sorts of powers anyway? I do understand that we don't want people beating the system, and I do understand that people shouldn't be allowed to travel for free. They shouldn't be able to evade their fare. But don't wrap up the time of people on this sort of stuff. It looks petty and it looks silly, because it is petty and silly. And let this woman go on her way and think about other ways to collect the fares on public transportation.
But it appears she was willing to overpay. She wasn't trying to rip anyone off.
She's not trying to escape.
There was even a passenger on the bus who offered to just put in the toonie and a loonie, $3 for her. And the transportation police told that particular Good Samaritan, if you will, to just step aside. It was none of her business.
And you and I are both laughing about it because it sounds so absurd. The transportation police, what did they come on with pistols drawn? I mean, I don't think so, and I hope that didn't happen. But it doesn't seem like punishment fitting the crime, and it does seem like a way over the top approach to what is really a simple problem. For goodness sake, go after the fare evaders, go after the people who are trying to get a free ride, literally and figuratively, and leave the law-abiding citizens alone, and certainly leave the law-abiding citizens alone who are trying to pay more for their trip than is being asked for. It really is quite petty.
All right, Simon, we've just got a few moments left here. You've been writing up a storm about something a lot more serious, and that's Syria and what Canada and other countries ought to be doing. What's your update on Syria?
Looking at it, I think the world is still aghast at what is going on there. We're not seeing all the problems, but you look at certain minority groups. What I've been looking at is how ancient Christian communities in that part of the world are being punished and being driven out, like they have in Egypt and like they were in Iraq. And the world was prepared to act when it had a no-fly zone to stop Saddam Hussein killing Kurds. They set off an area of the country where the Kurds could go, where the Kurds could have safe haven, and the world combined to put a no-fly zone. Surely that would be a start. And then go after the enablers of Syria, go after Russia, go after Iraq. These are the countries that are enabling what's going on in Syria, and work them either at the United Nations, which is really a glorified talk shop, but maybe go after their trade, bring in trade sanctions and make these people start talking. But in the first instance, stop killing innocent people from all different sorts of groups, and get some sort of perspective here that the killing has got to stop, and the killing has got to stop now, because over 100,000 people have already died, and the more the world talks and the more the world yawns and the more the world looks away, this is going to go on. And I'm really, really scared about what we're going to see when the fighting does stop and we find out what has really gone on. And let's just hope that they haven't used poisonous gas, which Barack Obama said would be the tipping point, that America would get involved if they have used poison gas. Some reports are coming in that is being used now. It's a Holocaust happening right now in Syria, and it really is time for the world to do something. And I really think a no-fly zone would be a starting point, and then putting the screws on Russia and Iraq would be a good. Russia and Iran would be a good place to go next.
Next door, it appears that someone is trying to put an offer on the table to the Muslim fundamentalists who are backers of Morsi to get Morsi out of the country. Do you think they'll do that? Do you think Morsi will leave Egypt?
I think if he's given the option, yes, he might go and form a government in exile, but it'll be a government in exile without the US support. Let's not forget that the US sends billions of dollars in aid every year to Egypt, and Morsi might go and live in Paris or live somewhere where he can escape to and pretend to have an Egyptian government in exile. That could happen, but the more pressing problem for Egypt is its economy is hopeless. Its economy is flatlining, and that's why Morsi, in the end, was so driven by his own religious obsessions, rather than giving people a job, giving people electricity, turning the water on in the city. really helping people get on with their lives. That's where Morsi failed, and I think this government at the moment really has to do something. Give people a job and give people work and give them a meaningful existence. That, to me, is going to override all the religious dogma that has bedeviled so many of the Middle Eastern countries. They need a good model of democracy. They haven't had a lot of practice at democracy, but now is a good time to start.
Simon, thank you for the visit as always.
It's a pleasure.